Hello. Thanks for clicking on. I'm so glad that you're here. So I called this inviting instead of resisting money because I had some very interesting conversations around the topic of money recently, and one of them had this guy I was talking to has the best reason for having money that I've ever heard, um, and he was saying that the best reason to have money, and really the only reason to have money, is to help raise the consciousness of yourself and of everybody around you. And it's about making things possible that wouldn't be possible otherwise. So if you, well, think of it this way. Okay, there's a lot of controversy, appropriately so, around Monsanto and promoting toxic chemicals in our foods, let's say. And this group that I used to be involved with were business people who wanted to affect change in the world. And one of them was lived in the U.S. part of the time and lived in near the Amazon jungle part of the time, and in her native homeland. And her mission in life was to reforest the Amazon, right? And because that was her mission, uh, self-appointed, that's what she had the passion for. That was, she really wants to see the Amazon thriving again. And so having that as her calling, or the thing that she chooses to do and to spend all of her life force on, was making her learn how to do fundraising and how to speak and promote fundraising so that they could buy the seeds and plant the trees physically. It's a physical activity, planting trees. And she had a lot of things to say about Monsanto, obviously. And watching her was really educational because she would go into resistance, what was wrong, what they were doing the research to find out what, nefarious things that they were pulling at the time. And she would balance that with standing in the vision of seeing the planet the forest reforested and the Amazon thriving and healthy again, and being in that energy. And being in that energy made it much more inviting for people to donate, right? Because that's an invitation, kind of an energy. It's an invitation to creating something. Whereas going after Monsanto tends to be an invitation of resistance and stopping something. And just as the language itself shows, the energy behind stopping something is very different than the energy around invitation and creating. Invitation and creating has a lot of flow. It has a lot of, fun. There's possibilities. It's kind of enlivening energy. And then around stopping Monsanto and changing the laws and doing the things that we need to do in the 3D world has a lot of that energy to it. A lot of stopping and defining and controlling. I like to call it control with a capital K, as opposed to, like an athlete who swims a lot. They have a lot of control over their body, but it's the kind of control like cooperating. Like, let's do this now. Let's do this now. Oh, but I'm tired. I don't want to do it. Well, okay, but let's do it anyway, right? So there's like the soft C control, and then there's the K control, which is, oppression and resistance, and, we're going to do it my way, the highway. So that group was showing me a lot about the pragmatic aspect of doing what you came here to do. And the lady with the trees, I think her organization was called I Plant Trees. um, she's also a really good example of how when it's time to do what you came here to do and get off the bench, oh, I don't know what I'm here to do. I don't know what I want to do. I want, somebody to tell me what my purpose is, what my meaning is. All of that is kind of distraction. And, um, as you're growing, as you start out as a kid and you go into adulthood, that's that's a legitimate spot on the growth chart to be on. There's nothing wrong with it. But there does come a time when some of us have just stayed there a little too long. And oh no, I really need to see the handbook before I get off the bench, right? Um, but anyway, when it's time to get off the bench and really dive into the pragmatic part of doing what you came here to do, then the whole idea of getting bigger comes into play. Because if you're going to do something that hasn't been done before, or if you're going to do something that you've never seen done before, but you see the need for it, and if you're going to do something that's different than what's been done before, all of those things require you to be a you haven't been yet. You may have a lot of the ingredients, but there's things that you get to grow into. And there are days when it feels like there's things that you have to grow into, but really it's things that you get to grow into. And the notion of getting bigger. So again, in this other business kind of, business for spiritual people group that I was in, they would talk about, oh, your vision's not big enough. You need to think bigger. And I was still legitimately kind of on the bench time in my life about what my business is going to be and how I was going to do things. And from the I wasn't there yet spot, which, like I said, is a very legitimate spot. It's just in the context of this. When I would hear, you need to get bigger, I heard, my impression was something in the neighborhood of greedier, right? Or, it's all about the money, or it's all about the number. It's the size of the number. It's the amount of the money, or the publicity, right? So that's another part of my story, was that being on the bench had a lot to do with being safe in obscurity. And some people, if you understand what that means, then you know what I'm talking about. And if you have any kind of an extrovert gene that I don't have, then it probably just sounds silly. But it has to do with the only place to stay safe is out of people's eye, out of their opinion, right? And it does have a lot to do, it turns out, with not being willing to be judged, and a lot of things that are bite-sized growth periods. There's things that you can do about it. So because I wasn't ready for the message of get bigger about money, I would hear it as you have to be an extrovert, or you have to already have $1 million to make $1 million. I heard limiting ideas that were out of my bounds, right? They were not real to me. And I wasn't sure that they were desirable either. I was still in a place where I was having the conversation about, what's wrong with a small and meaningful life. Because I had not grown yet to the spot where I understood that for me, 90% of my introverted shyness was coping patterns to get away from people's opinions of me. Being psychic and really susceptible and aware, but without training, The only way I knew how to deal with people's projections and opinions and decisions and conclusions about me was to not know them, to keep them at bay. And the best way to do that would be to not go out in the world much. So, a lot of my getting a smaller, quieter life was the antidote to the bigger, louder projection life that I've been living before without any tools for um, understanding what was going on or how to make myself thrive and safe, right? Except, get smaller and go sit on a shelf. So the reason I'm pointing this out is because sometimes when we hear a new idea and we have kind of a visceral reaction to it, we can assume sometimes, we make these decisions, conclusions, assumptions, that we know what they're saying and that idea is bad and wrong for us, or it's inaccurate, or some other way of cutting it out. And um, I'm just introducing the idea that possibly this new idea may sound um, inappropriate or inaccurate or wrong because it's not your time to hear yet. You have a lot of things that are going on in your head that make this thing sound different and suspiciously different. Let's put it that way. So I work with a lot of people who have a lot of stuff around money. And the big secret about that is that if you have a pulse and you were born um, at all, then if you have a body, then you have stuff around money because everybody does, because the entire culture has stuff around money, among other things. But we're going to talk about money today. So when you have limitations and beliefs and loyalty oaths and things that you're really sure of, and um, no, this is really how it is, and money is this and money is that, and money is the root of all evil, or money isn't evil, it's just the people who have it. Whatever your stuff is around money, um, it isn't really about money. And I know this from experience. If you have an attitude about money that says that money is the root of all evil, let's just use that one because it's a real common one, then your system is not going to really tolerate your having money because your system is designed to keep you in integrity. So if you have a strongly felt belief from religion, from childhood, from your grandmother, from her going through the depression, even though she was dead by the time you were born, you can have this energy of belief, solidity in your system, in your body, in your genes, as well as in your thoughts. That's in it that says, let's say, money is the root of all evil. And so, because now, if you desired to be evil, then that might make it really easy to have money. But I'm assuming that you want to be a good person and you want to contribute to the planet. And therefore, if money is the root of all evil, you can't have anything to do with that, right? You see how they're incongruent, right? So, for you to have money, you're going to have to have a different energy about money. Now, in the old days, we used to kind of have to go through these search and destroy missions to go find out, oh, I have this belief about money, and I got it from, my father, and he got it from his father, and because they lived through the depression, da, 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 all this, running down, tracking down everything. And then, and seemingly not even ever uprooting it. It was, it's really strange. but it was very interactive. There was a lot of activity involved. And then uh, come to find out years later, well, the money thing hadn't changed. I can talk about it a lot longer. I can explain it a lot better, but the bank account doesn't show much difference, right? And so instead of doing that now, be it all the different changes that are on the planet, a lot of us have been working in raising consciousness raising for like 40 years. And before my group, my wave, there are other waves that were working on it, and there's waves before and after and since. So, we have helper beings not on the planet. We have a lot of help going on. And the point is that today, in 2019, there are things that are available that didn't used to be available. And there are possibilities and breakthroughs that are available today that didn't used to be. And so if you have an experience of yourself kind of waking up a little bit, or, having a sense that things could be easier than they are, that's because it's time for you to wake up. And we use money because, I'll circle back to what I kind of started with. There was, I was listening to um, a teacher, well, he's not a teacher, he's Dr. Dane here. He's an Access Consciousness co-founder and facilitator and all around great guy. And I was listening to some tape of his that he has a lot of, YouTubes and lives and stuff. And he was saying that the best reason to have money is to change the world. And I couldn't agree more. It was like, okay, that's perfect. And once you really get that, right? And oftentimes what it takes is clearing a lot of stuff, because your brain can, it's just a sentence in English. If you speak English, you get it, right? But to really get it, the stranger in a strange land, to really grok something is not the same thing as being able to repeat the sentence or imitate it. It's a way of being. That's, the whole thing about grokking. It's an embodiment, a beingness of the energy. And for a person to change from having a lot of dormant and unconscious conclusions, decisions, assumptions, instructions, projections, commitments, bonds, loyalty oaths, and everything else around something like money, to be able to go from that to being able to have it, requires choices and actions, dedication. And we have clearings for that. So the more you want to be the change that you want to see in the world, and the more you want to have a different reality in the physical world, the more you have to be your test kitchen. And the more you want to clean up. I don't like the implications of clean up because that means you're dirty, but it's language, right? So for you to be able to have a different relationship with money would require that you have a different relationship with having this. And having this is one of those things that our culture is kind of clunky about. You can have things that other people want. You can't have things that other people lack, because that means that you've taken what they need, maybe. I mean, we have a lot of nuttiness around having this and receiving. So I'm going to do a call. I'm going to do a Zoom on Friday. Today is Wednesday. So let's do this Zoom on Friday, tomorrow, day after tomorrow. And we're going to do some clearings around money. And if you have any questions that you particularly want to address around money, my father's family is great with money, but my mother's family is not. And therefore, there's like this, you know, civil war going on around money. And now how do I get through that? Or whatever your stuff is around money. Jot me an email and include it. And then um, come to the Zoom on Friday. And if you can't be on the live Zoom, go ahead and um, register, and then you'll get the recording. So the Zoom is going to be Friday, April the 5th at 3 p.m. Eastern. So that's noon Pacific. And if you want to have the clearings around money, because who doesn't need that, right? Then you can register and send me the email, and I'll include your request, your question, your situation in the audio. I mean, in the Zoom, and then you can have it when you can listen to it later, right? So I really want to see what you came here to create for the planet and for yourself. And so I would really love to have you come and join in on this so that you get the clearings and you start to have the clarity and the ease with having money so that you can spend it and send it into the world in the ways that only you can. Um, you are very unique and your voice is very unique. And what you came here to do is in your wheelhouse. It's the stuff that you love. And being able to have that flow, let's clear out some of the gunk that gets in your way. So thanks for checking in, and hope you got some useful information out of this. And I hope that you register and join me on Friday, and let's start clearing some headway, making some headway with the clearings so that you can have more ease and joy and glory with your actualizing and manifesting. All right. Thanks.